was your intention of joining the Perry versus Schwarzenegger lawsuit to prominently put on trial state discrimination?
The idea, we had a great opportunity in this case. The judge to whom we were assigned, the chief judge of the federal district court in the Northern District of California, that's San Francisco, said that lots of these cases get decided on briefs. People file motions, and then the judge looks at the legal issues and then decides the case. He said, I know that there are a lot of important factual questions here. I want a trial. And we embraced that. We embraced the opportunity to put discrimination on trial. We found, and we had a 13-day trial to include the closing arguments. We found the leading experts in the world who had studied and were respected by their peers on the history of marriage, on the political science, what happens with initiatives and referendums when minority rights are put to a vote. What is the impact of discrimination on the soul and the dignity of an individual? How much psychological damage does it do to a person when they're perceived as different and less valuable? How much damage is done by a person who struggles and is afraid to identify themselves as to who they are? How much, what is the impact on marriage, the point David was just talking about? In other countries, the Netherlands, for example, what happened when people of the same sex were allowed to get married? Did it discourage people from getting married? Of course it didn't, but as David pointed out. But and we talked about with experts child raising and how well adjusted are children in a same-sex household. We put on all of these experts, and it was an absolute fascinating education, that trial. I felt privileged to be in the room when that evidence was taking place, when these experts were testifying. For example, the woman who Dr. Cutt testified about marriage and changes of marriage in the course of the existence of this country. And one example that she talked about how marriage changed, that there was discrimination on the basis of race, which culminated in a Supreme Court decision striking that down. In California, if you were to marry someone who was Chinese, you could lose your citizenship. There's changes in gender relationships in marriage over the years. Slaves were not permitted to get married because that was the slave owner's ability to control the household, and that when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, slaves flocked to get married because that was a sign that they were indeed free. They had the right to form families. This is the kind of evidence that we put on. And we did demonstrate all of the things that we wanted to demonstrate. One other additional thing is, what is a person who is a gay or lesbian? Is it something that's a choice, or is it something that they have built within them? Is it an innate characteristic? And of course it is. And the other side tried to put on, they listed 8 expert witnesses at the beginning of the trial. David and other members of our team took their depositions before the trial, asked them hard questions, cross-examined them. There's some great, and I have to mention now that there's a HBO film out called The Case Against 8. It's released in theaters here in New York and Washington and Los Angeles just last week. It'll be in your homes on next Monday, the 23rd, The Case Against 8, HBO. It is a fabulous film, and it talks about the whole trial, and it talks about the plaintiffs, and you come to love them as we came to love them and cherish them. One of the things it does, it reveals some of the depositions that were taken by David and our colleagues, in which David asked hard questions of these witnesses, and they wound up admitting things that were fundamental to our case as opposed to the other side's case. And of the 8 witnesses, 6 of them vanished. They decided, well, they had other things to do. And one of them at one point said, you know, I went through that once in the deposition. I'm not going to go in the courtroom and face cross-examination by David Boies. That one basic fundamental expert that was left, and you'll see this in the movie, it's so classic. David cross-examined him, and at the end of that, he said that children are better off in a same-sex household if their parents were allowed to get married. And he said that this country would be more true to its American ideals the day that this country allowed persons of the same sex to marry the person they love. Well, that was our case.